Ni hao, pessoas curiosas que querem saber o que vai acontecer com a China quando o Trump começar a trabalhar. Tudo bem com vocês? Vamos lá, né? A gente teve que achar um vídeo num gringo falando sobre isso.
Everyday US politicians
Ih, peraí, a legenda tá em auto-translate, esqueci de colocar aqui. Vamos lá, tem que ser legendinha em português.
tell us that America must decouple from China and move manufacturing back to the United States. But something remarkable is happening behind the scenes. When you look at the data, some of the largest and most important American companies are actually increasing their manufacturing in China, buying more components from China, and building a deeper relationship with China. As the world prepares for a second Donald Trump presidency this January, all eyes will be on the White House as Trump navigates this complex US-China relationship. Throughout his re-election campaign, Trump told American voters that he would be tough on China, threatening to impose tariffs on all Chinese imports.
É o que ele prometeu, mas a realidade já não está casando, né? Já não está casando, porque ele falou no começo que nós vamos taxar 100%, né? Depois caiu para 60% e agora é 10%. E provavelmente ele não vai taxar tudo, né?
But will this strategy actually work? Is it possible for Donald Trump and his cabinet to sanction and tariff their way to success and bring manufacturing jobs back to America? While all of this sounds good to Republican voters who believe Donald Trump will make America great again, the simple reality is it's almost impossible to move these jobs back to the United States for three main reasons.
Só o Rock acredita que os Estados Unidos são capazes de mover toda a manufatura da China de volta para lá, né?
In today's video, we're going to break down these reasons and explain why no matter what Donald Trump does in office, China will remain the key driver of economic growth for the majority of nations around the world, including the United States. This is going to be a fun episode. Let's begin. Today's video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. Stay tuned for an exciting offer for establishing a baseline and looking at the sheer volume of trade that happens between the US and China. Take a look at this chart that shows the trade balance between the two countries over the past quarter century. You'll notice that over the last decade, the US has been sharply increasing its trade with China almost every single year.
Bom, mas o Rock falou pra gente mais cedo que a China, os Estados Unidos ia sair da China, né? Não ia desacoplar, ia parar de produzir aqui. Como assim, gente? Como assim? O Rock não falou a verdade?
Let's take it one step further and examine the total value of monthly imports and exports between the US and China over the past 24 months. Once again, notice the remarkable consistency. There has been no significant decrease in trade, despite all the rhetoric coming from Washington, D.C. It's business as usual between the US and China.
Até porque os Estados Unidos são uma oligarquia. Quem manda nos Estados Unidos são os empresários. Não tem como.
Understand why this is happening. We simply need to do alternative research outside of the mainstream media, which only portrays China in a negative light. For example, if you read this white paper report published by the American Chamber of Commerce,
American Business in China White Paper.
In China, it reveals the exact mindset of many US companies. More than 90% of the participating companies select China as one of the most important investment destinations, and 75% of the companies plan to reinvest in China. There is a
Então, essa história, né? Vocês lembram? Não sei se vocês lembram, mas o Japão falou: não, a gente vai pagar para as empresas saírem da China e voltar para o Japão. Não aconteceu. Não aconteceu, cara. Esse movimento de decoupling, né, desacoplar da China, isso não aconteceu. E quando aconteceu, foi literalmente: olha, a gente tira a fábrica da China e move para o Vietnã, move para o México, mas a gente continua comprando a matéria-prima da China. Então, assim, move da China para um outro lugar, mas continua comprando da China. Então não adiantou muito, né? Isso não está acontecendo.
Phenomenal shift happening right now because China is inventing the technology that will control the future of our world. Don't believe me? Look at this article from the Financial Times. EU to demand technology transfers from Chinese companies.
Por décadas se criou essa ideia de que, olha, a China só copia. A China, o chinês não é capaz de criar nada, né? Aí agora a Europa está fazendo com a China o que a China fez com a Europa nos anos 80, nos 90. China, vocês querem vender para a gente? Vocês querem, né, acessar o nosso mercado? Vocês têm que fazer transferência de tecnologia. Vocês têm que ensinar para a gente agora, né, os europeus, como que vocês produziram esses carros elétricos num custo tão baixo. Qual que é a tecnologia que vocês usam? Então, os europeus estão fazendo o que a China fez com eles, que era o que o Brasil deveria fazer. A China vai levar aquela internet lá, que é concorrente do Elon Musk e tal. Beleza. Vocês têm que fazer transferência de tecnologia e ensinar a gente como é que faz.
For decades, a core part of China's development strategy was to find clever ways to transfer technology from the West. But now, the roles are reversed. The West is trying to figure out how to transfer technology from China. In fact, this is one of the biggest misconceptions about China. Most people believe foreign companies relocate their manufacturing to China for cheap labor, but this is actually false. Just listen to the wise words of Apple CEO Tim Cook as he reveals the truth.
Assim, hoje isso, né? Nos anos 70, anos 80, anos 90, boa parte, um dos principais motivos era a questão da mão de obra, porque a China não tinha logística e qualidade nesse nível, né? Isso demorou, isso foi um processo construído. Hoje a China tem uma logística extremamente absurda, que consegue atender o mundo inteiro muito rápido, consegue produzir num volume muito grande e com a qualidade boa. Hoje, não necessariamente hoje, mas assim, alguns anos atrás, anos 80 e anos 90, não era assim.
There's a confusion about China, and let me at least give you my opinion. The popular conception is that companies come to China because of low labor cost. I'm not sure what part of China they go to, but the truth is China stopped being the low labor cost country many years ago. The reason is because of the skill, the quantity of skill in one location, and the type of skill it is.
Tim Cook speaks the simple truth. What good is it to have low labor costs if you can't find highly skilled people to manufacture your products and don't have the infrastructure to transport the goods? If labor costs were the number one aspect of manufacturing, then we would see thousands of foreign companies scrambling to India to build factories. But despite India's cheap labor, the country doesn't have the skilled workers or the infrastructure to compete with China.
Então, mas isso é uma estratégia que esses países, se eles forem espertos, daqui a pouco eles começam a se coçar, né? É porque o Modi é um fascista, né? É entreguista também, mas se os caras fossem espertos, eles se coçavam e investiam em infraestrutura para começar a combater com a China, até porque é aqui do lado.
I broke all of this down in another video, 10 reasons why India is not the next China. I'll link it for you to watch at the end of today's video. But once again, we need to dig deeper into this story and reveal to you the real reason why China will continue to be the world's factory. In the future, manufacturing will be defined by a shift to clean energy, which means that solar panels, wind turbines, and electric vehicles will be at the forefront. And when it comes to green energy, China is the undeniable powerhouse, completely dominating the industry. Their control over these technologies isn't just significant, it's a game changer. And it's why research articles are being published showcasing that China holds all the cards in the great green energy game. Inside this article, it reveals that crucial rare earth minerals are needed for the green energy transition. And once again, China holds a near monopoly. We simply cannot understate the value of these rare earth metals. Back in 1987, Deng Xiaoping famously said that the Middle East has oil and China has rare earths. He couldn't be more correct. While the reserves of rare earths are scattered around the globe, 40% are found in China. When it comes to extracting them, over 70% of rare earths are mined in China. Further downstream, China trumps all, processing nearly 90% of rare earths.
Esses metais terras raras aí se usa principalmente para tecnologia, né? Desenvolvimento de chips, equipamentos eletrônicos, etc.
Not only does China own the entire supply chain, but China also has the most talent and research into the fields that will drive the 21st century. It's no secret that China is producing the most amount of STEM graduates in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Ano passado foram 2 milhões de engenheiros formados na China.
Is not only the future of manufacturing, but also the future of our world, with STEM jobs projected to grow faster than all other jobs over the next decade. China has an outsized dominance in mining and mineral engineering. In fact, if we look at the recent global ranking, Chinese universities dominate this field, occupying 6 of the top 10 positions, with Australia occupying the remaining 4. The USA doesn't have a single university that ranks in the top 15. When it comes to the production and purification of metals, this is a specialized field of engineering called metallurgical engineering. Once again, China dominates this field, occupying all top 5 positions, with the US having only 1 university in the top 10. And finally, let's look at chemical engineering, which tells a similar story. MIT, one of the best American universities, ranks #1 worldwide in this field, but China occupies 13 of the top 16 positions. Combine this with the sheer volume of STEM graduates coming from China every year, and it's easy to see why China is the dominant force in high-end manufacturing. Once again, let's listen to Apple CEO Tim Cook explain why this engineering expertise is so important to foreign companies manufacturing in China.
The products we do require really advanced tooling, and the precision that you have to have in tooling and working with the materials that we do are state of the art. And the tooling skill is very deep here. You know, in the US, you could have a meeting of tooling engineers and I'm not sure we could fill the room. In China, you could fill multiple football fields. It's that vocational expertise is very deep.
Não é o vocacional, né? Isso aí foi o governo incentivando e falando, olha, a gente precisa desse tipo de empresa, a gente precisa desse tipo de empresa. Ah, beleza, a gente vai abrir uma fábrica da Apple? Ok, a gente precisa de empresa que vai fazer a parte de trás do iPhone, sei lá, isso aqui, né? A gente precisa de uma empresa que vai fazer os moldes para a lateral do iPhone. O governo vai e começa a cobrar que as pessoas tenham esse tipo de empresa, né? É uma política estatal. Então, não é vocacional. Porque, assim, a gente tem uma fábrica na Rússia e o fornecedor de moldes, né, que ele está falando aí, é 1.000 quilômetros de distância da fábrica, o mais próximo. E aqui na China, ao redor da nossa fábrica, tem vários. Porque a gente está num distrito industrial que tem um monte de fábrica que trabalha com componente de plástico. Então, tem vários fornecedores de molde de plástico naquela região. Então, é parte de política, né? Tem a parte, óbvio, de mercado, do cara entender, bom, tem um monte de empresa de plástico, eu vou abrir uma empresa de molde, né? Porque fica aqui do lado. Mas também tem o governo incentivando e falando, olha, a gente precisa mais desse tipo de empresa. E também o que aconteceu? Nessa época de desenvolvimento, né, quando os caras vieram desenvolver iPhone aqui, para desenvolver as partes, etc., a China não tinha esse nível de conhecimento. A China não estava aí, como o Cyrus estava comentando, as top engenharia, top universidades chinesas no mundo, etc. Não era assim. Foi muita gente que foi estudar fora, voltou para ensinar aqui. Muito engenheiro de fora veio trabalhar na China. Engenheiros da Apple que vieram aqui desenvolver fornecedor. Então foi todo um processo que levou muito tempo. 20, 30 anos. Não foi da noite para o dia. Não foram os chineses sozinhos que chegaram nesse ponto, né?
Very, very deep here.
Video clips like these are almost impossible to find in Western media because it goes against everything our US politicians preach to us every day. US politicians want you to believe that China is the greatest threat to America, when in reality, China has helped grow the US economy tremendously over the past 50 years. The New York Times recently published an amazing article entitled Breaking Up with China is Hard to Do, and inside it reveals some astonishing facts about the US-China trade war that will absolutely amaze you. I'm going to break them down for you, but first, I do want to give a huge thank you to Private Internet Access, who is the sponsor of today's video and an important tool that I literally use. Let's get back to our story and reveal why US companies can't say goodbye to manufacturing in China. As I
E aí, por que o professor Rock está errado?
mentioned in the beginning of today's video, the West is starting to recognize the superior technology coming from China, and many American companies are left with an interesting question to answer. Should we attempt to compete with China and overtake their technology at a significant cost, or do we cede the market to the Chinese and simply become their customers? This is the exact dilemma that Jim Farley, CEO of Ford Motor Company, is facing. Throughout 2024, Mr. Farley spent a significant amount of time in China and came back to the US realizing that legacy car makers face an existential threat in China.
Inclusive, ele importou Xiaomi, né? Ele está dirigindo Xiaomi.
China is simply too far ahead in the EV industry that Western automakers literally have no chance to compete with China. Ford has predicted they will lose $5 billion on its electric vehicle operations, and remember, that's in spite of high tariffs that block Chinese EVs from entering the American market. Ford has now decided its best option is to pivot strategies and take subsidies from the US government to make batteries in Michigan. But here's the catch. Ford will license the battery technology from China's CATL, the world's largest maker of EV batteries, once again proving that without China, Ford would not have a future in the EV industry.
E aí o que os Estados Unidos deveria fazer, né? Se não fosse um país oligarca, assim, que os caras só pensam em dinheiro. Eles deviam forçar a China a transferir tecnologia, a mesma coisa que a China fez com eles. Mas não, né? Os caras não são...
But now let's take a look at Apple's business in China and reveal just how important China is to one of America's most valuable brands. Earlier this year, Nikkei Asia reported that Apple is moving closer to China despite supply chain shifts. Once again, there is a stark difference between what US politicians preach and what pragmatic business leaders are doing in China. Apple is increasing its use of parts from both Chinese suppliers
Essa loja não é na China, né?
and manufacturing sites, while using fewer suppliers from Taiwan, the United States, Japan, and South Korea. Despite political tensions between the US and China, the 21st century belongs to Asia, and smart American companies will embrace this shift to the east. Apple announced earlier this year it was expanding a research center in Shanghai and opening a new tech lab in Shenzhen. But if the domination in resources, technology, and talent isn't enough, the infrastructure used to facilitate this manufacturing and transport it around the world is second to none. From fully automated ports to the most extensive high-speed rail network, China has spent decades building up a world-class network of infrastructure that simply no other nation can compete with. In addition, let's not forget the over 150 countries who have joined China's Belt and Road Initiative. Altogether, China has built the world's largest and most extensive trading network that further cements its status as the world's factory and ensures that not only are products going to continue to be made in China, but they will be seamlessly transported and distributed efficiently throughout the globe. As you can see...
Então, e aí a gente tem o Trump falando, né? Nós vamos taxar tudo que vem da China. Só que assim, tem quantos empresários estadunidenses que produzem na China, além da Apple, né? E vende lá. Como eu já falei várias vezes, né? Bandeira dos Estados Unidos é feita aqui, produto de marketing da campanha do Trump, o papel higiênico. E aí o Trump fala, não, nós vamos taxar 100%. Essa galera vai perder dinheiro. Vai perder dinheiro. E aí agora o Trump já não, veja bem, não é assim 100%, né? Talvez uns 10%, veja bem.
The cards are stacked pretty heavily against America. Instead of adopting some of China's industrial policies to catch up or allowing American consumers to benefit from affordable, high-quality Chinese products, our politicians have made the worst decision possible. Trump decided to use tariffs as his main tool to address the trade deficit during his first term, which was then carried over and expanded during the Biden administration. We have almost 8 years of data to show that tariffs do not work in their reported purpose of relocating factories back to the United States. Instead, the additional costs from tariffs are passed on to the consumer, making everyday Americans, and certainly not China, the biggest loser.
Inflação.
If you find this hard to believe, simply listen to the wise words of billionaire investor Mark Cuban, who explains why tariffs always fail. The majority of American consumers will not pay up for American-made products. If they would, all of this would be moot. Companies would have an incentive to build here, even if it costs more. The second is companies, by default, are patriotic and want to build here.
As empresas, by default, são... O bilionário estadunidense falando que as empresas, por definição, são patrióticas. Não existe isso, gente. Não existe empresa patriótica. Não existe isso. Cara, tanto não são patrióticas que eles produzem na China.
If they could build cheaper here, they already would be doing so.
Mas o patriotismo ficou onde?
To be honest, this is such a simple concept to understand. In order for manufacturing to come back to the United States, one of two things need to happen. Number one, the cost of manufacturing has to be reduced. Or number two, the price buyers are willing to pay has to go up. It is as simple as that. This is not complex, but it's amazing how so many US politicians don't understand basic economics. Consumers will always prefer the lowest cost option of a product.
Não é que eles não entendem, cara. Pô, mano, esse cara faz uns vídeos tão bons. Não é que os políticos não entendem. Os políticos jogam para plateia deles. É a mesma coisa o Milei na campanha, né? É um exemplo que fica mais próximo do brasileiro. Não vou fazer negócio com o Brasil, não vou fazer negócio com a China, malditos comunistas. Estava lá, cara, abraçando o Lula, pedindo dinheiro para o Xi Jinping. Que a campanha é uma coisa, quando o cara vai trabalhar é outra. Então, esses caras aí, esses políticos, eles ficam falando, sou contra a China, sou contra a China, sou contra a China, mas no fim não são, né? Porque o eleitor não vai pegar os detalhes da parada. O eleitor só vai ver, não, verdade, eu voto nesse cara porque esse cara é contra a China.
Regardless of where it comes from, this just goes to show that these tariffs are unserious and politically motivated. I'll share with you one final case study that illustrates this point so clearly. In 2008, the United States was the powerhouse manufacturer of solar panels, controlling over 45% of market share. But fast forward 16 years, and U.S. manufacturing is barely visible on this graph. China has transformed the industry with superior manufacturing and now dominates the future of solar energy.
Porque o governo chinês falou, olha, a gente precisa mais fábricas de painel solar, até para fazer uma transição energética. E aí o governo bota dinheiro, o governo fala para as universidades, né, abram cursos que desenvolvam esse tipo de tecnologia, traz pesquisador de fora. Esse é um projeto de governo, que é o que o Brasil não tem, por exemplo.
This is an important lesson for all Americans to learn. It wasn't so long ago that we could compete at mass-producing critical technologies like solar panels, but with the wrong government policies in place,
Claro.
the number one position can change in just a few short years.
Claro.
At the end of the day, the idea that America can easily decouple from China just doesn't hold up against the reality of the global manufacturing landscape. China's dominance in green energy, rare earth minerals, engineering talent, and infrastructure is simply unmatched. For America to bring manufacturing back, it would need massive investments in workforce development, infrastructure, and supply chain. But instead, we're doubling down on tariffs, which, as we've seen, will only add costs for the American consumers while leaving China's grip on global manufacturing largely untouched. Unless the US makes serious changes to its industrial policies and priorities, the Made in America dream might just stay that, a dream. Instead of hoping tariffs or political pressure will somehow change the fundamental economic advantages that China holds, it's time for America to rethink its approach and focus on building a competitive edge where it really matters. Everyone, thank you for making it.
É isso aí, né? O sonho americano vai ser só isso aí mesmo, um sonho, né? Porque não tem, cara, não existe. O que o Rock falou de, os Estados Unidos, se eles quiserem, eles movem todas as indústrias. Cara, isso não existe no mundo real. Isso existe no mundo de fantasia dele, que ele vende para os 1,5 milhão de seguidores, para os Arigó nó cego da CNN. Mas no mundo real isso não se aplica, não tem como. Aí eu sou obrigado a trazer vídeo de gringo para poder falar essas coisas.